What if I told you that most of what we think we know about how people shop is just wrong? Today, we're going to skip the boardroom theories and dig into the 9 real, data-backed laws that show how people actually behave in a store. This is the real science of selling.
This right here, this is the question. It's what every marketer, every business owner on the planet is trying to figure out. We spend so much time and money trying to answer it, but what if the answers are way, way simpler than we think?
You see, the truth isn't buried in some complex strategy document. Nope. It's found by watching millions of actual shoppers doing their thing. And that's where we find these 9 empirical laws of shopping. They're all based on what people really do.
All right, so let's start with the most basic question of all. Why is someone even in your store to begin with? It sounds simple, I know, but the answer is the foundation for everything else. And here it is, law number 1. And it's so simple, it's brilliant. Shoppers are on a mission. They don't just wander in randomly for fun. They go because there is something specific they intend to buy. That's their goal, their whole reason for being there.
So what does this actually mean for you? Well, if people are looking for your product, your ads better show them that product. And think about it. If they make a whole trip to your store and you're out of stock, that's not just a small problem. It's the #1 reason they get frustrated, and it's a super fast way to lose a customer.
Okay, so if a shopper is on a mission, the next question is, where are they going to go? And that brings us to law number 2. Turns out it all comes down to 2 things, mental and physical availability. In other words, are you easy to think of and are you easy to get to?
So how do you do this? It's pretty straightforward. First, be where your customers are. That's physical availability, the obvious one. But just as important is mental availability. You've got to build what they call memory structures with consistent branding, so that when someone thinks, I need milk, your brand is the first thing that pops into their head.
All right, so the shopper's in the store. Now the game totally changes. They're not just on a mission anymore, they are literally in a race against their most valuable resource, their time.
And this is law number 3. A shopper's time is surprisingly rigid. It's like a mental stopwatch starts the second they walk through the door. They might be flexible on how much money they spend, but when that mental timer goes off, they are done. They will literally leave items from their list behind just to get out the door. Now here's where it gets really interesting. It's a total paradox. You'd think that a faster trip means less time to look around, which means they'd buy less stuff, right? Wrong. The data shows the exact opposite. When a trip is easy and fast, shoppers feel like they've saved time, and they actually reward the store by buying more. Convenience isn't just nice to have, it drives sales.
Which leads us straight to law number 4. And this one might just shatter your idea of the classic weekly grocery trip. We all have this image of someone with a huge, overflowing cart, stocking up for the week. But the data shows that's the exception, not the rule. The reality? Lots of small, quick trips. And this chart just makes it crystal clear. Take a look. The single most common type of shopping trip is for just one item. One. In fact, half, a full 50% of all supermarket trips are for 5 items or fewer. This just hammers it home. For most people, most of the time, speed is everything.
So let's just recap for a second. Shoppers are on a mission, they're in a hurry, and they're usually just buying a handful of things. How in the world do they find those few items in a giant store with like 30,000 different products? It's a classic needle in a haystack situation.
And that brings us to law number 5. And honestly, this one is a total showstopper. Just think about your own shopping. Out of the tens of thousands of options available, the data shows that a typical household buys from the same tiny list of just 300 to 400 products all year. We are such creatures of habit.
And that incredible loyalty leads directly to law number 6. This is basically the 80-20 rule on steroids. A tiny fraction of the products, the top 1,000 or so, bring in a mind-blowing 50% of a store's total sales. Sales are not spread out evenly. They are focused on a very small group of winners.
And here's what that looks like. It's pretty dramatic, right? Just 3% of the items in the store are responsible for half of all the money coming in. These bestsellers aren't just important, they're pretty much the whole game.
So what's the big lesson here? It's simple. Since people are loyal to this small set of products, the absolute worst thing you can do is move them. And that old myth about hiding the milk in the back of the store to make people discover new things, it's just that, a myth. It doesn't work. All it does is annoy people. The real strategy is to make your most popular stuff impossible to miss.
So, if shoppers are moving this fast and are this focused, how are they actually navigating the store? Well, they're not reading signs like a book. They're using a completely different visual language.
And that's law number 7. It's all about visual cues. When you're on a mission, reading a bunch of text is like hitting the brakes. So we just don't do it. Instead, our brains scan for things we recognize. Colors, shapes, logos. It's all about fast, intuitive pattern matching. This slide just nails it. It shows the difference between what marketers think shoppers are looking at and what they're actually seeing. On the left, you've got a wall of text with all the features and benefits. Eye-tracking studies show people pretty much ignore it. On the right, you have the things that actually get noticed. Big, simple, colorful logos and shapes. That's the language that works.
And that brings us to our last 2 laws, which are all about the shortcuts shoppers take. Law 8 says we're trained to look for specials. They're like a mental shortcut that makes it easy to decide. And Law 9 shows that we physically follow the path of least resistance. We're drawn to wide open spaces and we avoid cramped, cluttered aisles.
So the takeaways here are super practical. Use your unique brand colors and logos like a beacon to guide people. Make your specials super obvious so shoppers don't have to think too hard. And most importantly, work with their natural flow. Put your products where people are already going instead of trying to fight their instincts. When you put all 9 of these laws together, they point to one really big idea. Successful marketing isn't about trying to force people to change how they behave. It's about understanding how they already behave and then aligning everything you do with that reality.
So, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own business. Are you designing for the ideal, perfect shopper you have in your head? Or are you designing for the shopper you actually have, the one who's in a hurry, super loyal, and sees the world in colors and shapes? The answer might change everything. Thanks for tuning in.